All right, so welcome everybody for this Get Ready for Workday 2023R1 for core compensation and advanced compensation. Quickly about myself, so I'm a lead functional consultant at Tieto since 4 years now. Certification HCM, core, advanced compensation, benefits PM, launch methodology. But we will focus today on the core compensation and advanced compensation side. As Tina mentioned, there is a webinar practicalities, so I'm not gonna go again in this. We just went like a couple of minutes ago from that. So, but be active and ask questions. So I'm happy to answer. During this presentation, we will present new features. So safe harbor statements applies to the feature we are going to present here. Oops. All right. Here is a list of the new feature for core compensation. So we will do it at core compensation first, new feature, then after that, we'll go to the advanced compensation new features. So a few features for core compensation, and we are going to start with the eligibility rule plan profile processing. For advanced compensation, 3 new features, especially the one which the main feature is compensation review statement generation and delivery, where we are going to have a demo about that. All right, so let's get started with the core compensation and our first new feature, which is eligibility rule plan profile processing. So, you know, in Workday, when you have a compensation plan, you can have profiles attached to them. And on your profile, you have eligibility rules. Sometimes a worker is meeting different eligibility rules, so Workday would automatically assign the default target of the plan. So with this new feature, you can choose how Workday select eligibility rules on compensation plan profile. So there is a new tenant setting that we are going to look at the demo, and it increases the performance for tenants, and it's especially good feature for companies who have really multiple plan profile within compensation plan. So it increases the performance of Workday when it's time to assign a target for an employee. The configuration is rather simple. You need to go to Edit Tenant Setup HCM task, and on the compensation section, you have this new Enable Eligibility Rule Performance Enhancement for compensation plan profile. So let's go to the tenant for a quick demo. So I have an allowance plan called Special Allowance, where my default target is 5%, and I have plan profile. If the worker is in United States, 6%, location New York, 8%, and if it's part of human resource, it's 9%. So clearly, there could be employee meeting all this plan profile. So that's the case of one of my employee. Which is Tammy Column. And if we go to look at her compensation side, you can see her special allowance was 5%. And it's a default target because she is meeting all the requirements. She is United States, her location is New York, and she's part of the human resource organization. So Workday automatically assigned the 5%, which is a default target of the plan. So now we go to Edit Tenant Setup HCM. And we have this compensation section, and we have this new line here, Enable Eligibility Rule Performance Enhancement for Compensation Plan Profile. So if I want to use this feature, I tick this checkbox. Be really mindful with this feature, and you have an alert when you want to say to go forward with this feature, is once it's on, you cannot disable it anymore. So you may want to test first before you go forward with this. So you have the alert from Workday, which says you can't disable this powerful option after you select it and click OK. So Workday wants to make sure that all your plan profile rules are mutually exclusive. Otherwise, Workday will assign the first plan profile eligibility rule that the employee is meeting. So I click OK. And now let's go and assign this special allowance to an employee. So I'm going to go to request compensation change process. Effective today. And we are going to assign this special allowance to Pedro Santiago. So as a background, Pedro is similar setup than similar configuration than our previous employee. He is part of United States. Actually, location is New York, and he's part of the human resource. So he's meeting all the plan profiles. So let's see how Workday will work with this new feature. So before Workday 2023R1, when this feature is not enabled, Workday would automatically assign the 5%, which is coming from the default plan. So now if I want to give a special allowance, Workday choose the 8%. And why? Because he's meeting this employee in New York, which was 8%. The question is, I was thinking also myself, how is Workday selecting which plan profile the employee belongs to? And that's a fine question to ask. I went to look in community, and there was already an answer from Workday. So the product management team said that Workday is checking randomly all the plan profile. And immediately when the employee is reaching one of the plan profile eligibility, Workday assign it to him. So there is not specific order. So if I go to my plan profile, if I go here to my plan profile, you can see that this 8% is on the second place. So it's not related to any order. It's just Workday randomly take all the plan profile. And if the employee meets one of them, Workday assign it. And you can see there is not order anyhow. So you may want to be careful and want to be all these eligibility rules to be exclusive from each other. The main reason why this feature was given is for companies who have sometimes 60, 70, even 200 plan profile. So that would increase the performance of the tool when it's time to assign the plan profile, because if you don't use it, Workday will check all the eligibility rules, and immediately if the employee is eligible for 2 or 3 different plan profile, Workday will give the default. With this, it increases performance because immediately when the employee meets one of the plan profile, Workday assign it automatically. For employee having currently this special allowance, so not assigning. So that's the case of the employee we went to. We went to look, Tammy column. If I go to look her compensation section, so she was given a 5% default target. And when we go back to her compensation, it became an individual target. So Workday is not reanalyzing current employee assigned to this plan. Once you go on with this feature, it's just move the default target to an individual target. So additional consideration, as discussed during the demo, you're unable to undo this tenant setting once it's turned on. So you may want to be really careful and test in your sandbox and preview tenants before you go on with this. And the main advice from Workday is to be careful with your eligibility plan profile rules, that they are mutually exclusive. So the goal is not to have an employee eligible for multiple plan profile. So what's changing now is that you can choose how Workday will select eligibility rule on compensation plan profile. So you can decide if you go with the current setting, like you give the default target if an employee is eligible for multiple plan profile, or then decide to just take one of the plan profile randomly chosen by Workday. That's only my own opinion, so don't take it for granted, but I think it would make sense that we would have an order in the plan profile. So it can be in the next release, they are going to think about this order of plan profile. So we will have plan profile orders with numbers, and immediately when the employee reach the first eligibility plan profile rule based on this order, then that will be the default. But that's just my own head, and that's how I think this feature could be improved. So what do you need to do? You need to go Edit Tenant Setup HCM, select Enable Eligibility Performance Enhancement for Compensation Plan Profile checkbox. Remember that you're not enabled to undo this setting once you have it. And if you do nothing, it's just totally opt-in feature, so nothing is going to change. And if an employee is eligible for multiple plan profile, Workday will continue giving the default plan target. The second feature is total reward statement enhancement. So with total rewards, now you're able to bring to your total rewards your own calculation or even calculated fields on the total reward statement via using these total reward sections. So that came from a question from one customer. Oh, sorry, it's just turning notes. That wanted to display vacation amounts to the total rewards. So it was not possible, but now using calculated field or calculation, you could potentially do it. For that also, in addition, Workday is delivering the payroll result line completed reports field. You have new instance value calculation, and this calculation can be used for your total reward statement. And there is a new report field available on the compensation which is position compensation and time type compensation. So you can use these two new report fields for calculation, and you can bring them to total rewards. In addition to the calculation and calculated field to total rewards, Workday is improving this total reward statement by providing rich text formatting for the total rewards. So let's go for a demo. So I'll go to the task, edit total reward section. And I'll select the allowance. So now when I click and I want to add an item, you will see in the prompt these two new fields, calculated field by category or calculation by category. So you can go on and select any calculated field you created for your tenant. So you can see you have much more information that you can bring to your total rewards if it makes any sense for your company to have. So for example, I can add here one calculation, which is my seniority allowance amount. So I have a calculation which calculates the seniority allowance. I click OK. And then I will go to one employee. And if I go to the compensation on total rewards, you can see that I have this seniority allowance amount, which is a calculation, not a compensation plan, just a calculation, which was added to the total rewards. The second part of this feature is rich text formatting. So I will go now to edit total reward template. And I'm going to select my management. So now for your disclaimer text and the chart explanatory text, you are able to have rich formatting. So before it was just say straight text where you cannot update colors or add any links. So nowadays it's possible to do it on the disclaimer text and the chart explanatory text. So you can see for my chart, I have a bigger title. This chart provides visual representation of your total rewards. I can use colors and dots here. You can use also here for disclaimer text any link that you want that the employee could click and have access to the HR internal pay guide. So how it looks like now when I go to my own profile. Compensation, total rewards. So now I have this chart and my rich text formatting here. This chart provides. And here's this disclaimer. So if you want to use, please use the following resource, and you can have a link attached where you can have a link directly to your HR internal pay guide or to the human resource general email and so. So what's changing with this feature is that you can improve your total reward statement by providing more information, such as calculation, calculated fields, and the visual can be improved by this rich text formatting on the total reward template. What you need to do it's totally opt-in feature. So if you want to use the calculation and the calculated field to total reward, you need to update and edit your total reward sections and add the calculation or calculated fields. And for the rich text formatting, it's directly on the edit total rewards template. What happens if you do nothing? Your current total rewards statement will remain unchanged, so you won't see any impact of this feature if you decide to do nothing about it. The next feature is modify period activity assignment payment schedule. So with this feature, you can increase how the payment schedule on period activity assignment is provided. So you can modify schedule and override default payment and hours amount. So period activity pay is actually part of the Workday student area. So unfortunately, the demo is not available because we don't have student in our GMS tenant. But basically, the period pay activity is just a method for paying your employees with the fixed term activities, and you can have some payment arrangement on that. So it's mostly used on the Workday student side. And the whole functional area of period activity pay is on the Workday students functional area. But this feature, there is 4 enhancement, is that you have more flexibility on the effective dates of your activity events. You can also customize your activity payment schedule. The third enhancement is the ability to update payment schedule when employee has pay group change. And the last one is you have possibility to resign activity pay. So before you could not resign activity pay, which the event passed already, but nowadays you could do it with this feature. On the configuration side, sorry, when you want to customize a payment schedule for period activity pay, you can navigate to an assignment, an employee assignment, period activity, and click customize payment. You can override payment or the hours on the amount field. And you want to verify before you submit that your payment total adds up to the total defined for the assignment. So for example, if your total payment will be 2,000, but you want to split it, you need to make sure that this total would need to be 2,000. So 1,700 and 300 on the second time. When you want to enter a new period activity pay events, you need to access to manage period activity pay task. You need to enter effective dates, which is on or after the worker hire dates, of course, and select the eligible position and activity based on the entered effective date. When you have a look at your assignments with regenerated payment schedule, so you can make changes by accessing the event details and the process history. Like I said, you can now resign a period activity event which have been already paid and processed in payroll. How it's done, you have to look at the latest initiated on period activity pay event. On the related action, you can have the resign option once configured on the business process, of course. I said there's no, unfortunately, demo about that because we don't have Workday student in our GMS. So I cannot demo this feature. So here's some additional consideration. Workday will not regenerate a payment schedule if there's in progress period activity pay for the worker. You can retract in Workday payroll any resigned event paid, and the ability to resign the activity pay event with result line and the ability to customize payment are optional, so you don't need to opt in there. So what's changing? So you can now control over the payment schedule on period activity assignments, and you can, with this feature, modify schedules or even resigned pay assignments which have been already processed in payroll. So that's the main feature of this modified period activity pay assignments. what you need to do, you need to sort events on task, and then you have the customized payment button display, where you can update any existing payment schedule and provide a new assignment. This feature is totally opt-in, so you don't need to do any. You don't need to. Sorry, go for this feature. It's not a mandatory feature. Oops. The next one is within grade increase. So with this update, because you have sometimes automatic progression for customer use the steps and step progression. So now you can have a combination of your performance and the date based on how long a worker has been on the steps, and that gives the manager the ability to approve or deny if an employee can get a new automatic step increase. So you have more flexibility for the managers to decide if they want to, if they accept the progression step or deny it. So for this feature, we have a new business process definition, which is called within grade increase notification, that you need to create this default definition. You can find it in your functional area, filtering in business process from within grade increase notification and create a default definition. Configure your default definition and your business process security policy. So who can have access to this task? Grant selected security group. There is a new domain called process within grade increase that you need to also maintain if you want to opt in for this feature. And then there's a new task called edit step progression configuration. So with this task, you have three different places to maintain: the step progression notification time frame, the performance rating threshold. It determines if the worker is eligible for within grade increase or not. And the step progression effective date, which can be on the step progression eligibility date, start of current pay period, or start of the next pay period. Once you have configured that, you have a new task called schedule within grade increase notification, where you can set how often, what's the frequency of those notifications for the managers. And you have also a new report, which is called all within grade notification events that you can use. Oops. To preserve your employee step progression date during specific employee compensation events, you can access to maintain event categories and reason and configure a non-qualifying event reason to identify the step progression date. And then you need to go to the new task, edit step progression configuration. You have a new field called enable last equivalent increase for step progression date adjustment. You can set your non-qualifying event reason. That's the idea is that Workday would keep the progression date even if an employee goes to the next step. You can keep the progression date as it was before. So you have the option not to impact anymore your step progression date. And you can choose also compensation grades which are excluded from the step progression. So similarly, than to keep the step progression date not being affected. So here is a quick demonstration of it. So you have your edit, the new business process called within grade increase notification. I kept it as an initiation step, and who can initiate is manager and compensation partner. And you have the new domain, which is process within grade increase, that you need to maintain and enable if you want to opt in for this feature. So I've given to the comp admin It's security group only and constraint group, so it's mostly given to the compensation administrator or HR admin if the HR admin and comp admin are the same for your companies. And then you have the edit configuration step progression. So here is the new task mentioned during this presentation, that you can have a step progression notification time frame. So for example, if an employee's plan is having an automatic step progression within 180 days, Workday would trigger the notification for the manager. The performance rating threshold, so you can have performance impacting if an employee should go forward in their step progression. So for me, it's meets expectation. So if an employee meets expectation and is time for him to increase the step progression, then the manager will get a task in the inbox for employee who meets performance threshold, and they can choose and they can go forward with this. So they just get a notification and they submit that the step progression is fine. If an employee is not meeting expectation, gets a performance rating of 1 or 2, then the employee will get a different type of task in their inbox, where they can choose if the employee would not go forward in their step progression. So they can say, no, I don't want the employee to go forward with it. Or they can still decide if, yes, they want still the employee to go forward, even if the performance rating was not reached. And here on the last equivalent increase box, we have this non-qualifying event reason. So if I go to a request compensation change and I want to make a progression step for an employee, if I choose this business process reason, step progression non-qualifying, the progression date will not be impacted by my change. And that's the part I want to demo right now. So if I go to request compensation change, effective date today. So if I go and choose the reason of non-qualifying, step progression non-qualifying. If I want to go to the employee's step and bring to the next step, so you can see the progression start date is 16th of October 2019. If I go to the next, you can see that the progression start date was not updating as from today's date, so effective date. And here you have an alert message telling that the progression start date is preserved to the 16th of October because the business process reason used is this step progression non-qualifying. And that's what I mentioned in my task edit within edit configuration within step increase, that we set to the system, if the business process reason is step progression non-qualifying, do not change the progression start date. So you have more flexibility in how and when you want the progression start date to be updated. Additional consideration. So this feature, this within grade increase, was mainly for US federal, states, and government use. However, it's totally a feature which is open to everyone. So if you see a need and an important business improvement with this feature, you can of course use it. But yeah, the main idea for this feature was for US federal, state, and governments. So what's changing? So Workday enables you to configure employee step progression so that the user can approve or deny within grade increase events with greater ease and visibility. So the manager can decide based on the employee performance rating if they go forward with a step progression or not. In terms of configuration, there is some configuration to do. Of course, you need to have and set up compensation grade steps in your grade or grade profile and automatic step progression. You have a new business process, which is called within grade increase notification. So you need to configure the default definition and update the security policy. You have a new domain called process within grade increase that you need to also grant the security access. It's a user base, so mainly assigned to compensation administrator or HR admin. Then you need to go to edit step progression configuration. So that's a task where you can set what's the increase, what's the performance rating where you can make your increase, and also the non-qualifying events where you want your progression start date not to be impacted by this change. And then you have a schedule within grade increase task that you can use. If you do nothing, Workday will continue working as before, so no any mandatory change, or it's totally opt-in feature. To continue with the step improvement in Workday, we have this quality step increase. So with this release, your Workday will enable you to grant employee quality step increase that does not impact regular step progression. So for this, similarly, we have you need to set up the grade, and you need to have step and automatic step progression. There is also a new business process definition called quality step increase. So you need to create a default definition and update the business process security policy. You need to access to the maintain event categories and reason and create your own quality step increase reasons. When an employee, if you have employee compensation event and you don't want that the step progression start date is impacted by this quality step increase, so you can do it. And then you need to use edit step progression configuration and add a quality step increase reason code. So as a demonstration of this feature, so sorry, I go to that proxy. So I go to my new business process called request quality step increase. I select the effective date, which is 16th of February. I use my employee. I click OK. And how it looks like is just Workday will just tell you some information about the compensation package, the grade profile, the current compensation step, which is level 3. And after this process, the next compensation step, which is level 4. And you can see the progression start date was not impacted. So if I go to my employee, on the worker history, on the compensation side, you can see that my last change in the steps was on the 16th of October 2019, and my progression start date was updated from 16th of October 2018 to 16th of October 2019. So with this process, with this quality step increase, you do not have to change the progression start date. So if I use a regular request compensation change and I update the step, the progression start date would automatically update to the effective date of this request compensation change. Using quality step increase, the progression start date will not be changed. You have access to compensation details. So your prior compensation change, next compensation change, what's going to change with this process. So it's a step from level 3 to level 4. So some information, and you can click submit. As mentioned, this is successfully completed. It's a business process. You could have then a review from your compensation partner as a next step. So totally up to you and your business needs. So if I go back to my employee hash and I go to worker history, oh, sorry, go to the worker compensation. So you can see that nowadays the step is a level 4. Prior this process was level 3, but the current step progression started was unchanged. Additional consideration, similarly to the within grade increase notification, this was meant mostly for US federal, state, and government. However, this is an open process for all the customers, so if you see any needs and you want to opt in for this feature, you can definitely do it. So what's changing? You have a new business process called quality step increase. That's for employees that you want to bring to the next step, but you don't want their step progression date to be impacted. So what you need to do, you need to create a new default definition for this quality step increase, configure it following your needs. If you need to have just the initiation step, if you want to have any review approvals, completely up to you. But remember to of course maintain the business process security policy. You need to access to the maintain event categories reason and configure your own quality step increase reason. So it allows you to identify when an employee should not be impacted from the step progression start date, and edit step progression configuration and add your quality step increase reason cause. This is totally opt-in feature, so Workday will continue working as before if you don't opt in for this. Other features, where Workday brings some small adjustments. So in the previous release, Workday introduced the benefits and pay hubs. So for this release, there was a few adjustments. So there was a better visual of the annual total rewards package card. So Workday makes some improvement on that, and Workday updated the bonus and one-time payment schedule, bonus and one-time payment card, sorry, by adding a paid date. And Workday is also removing a scheduled payment date for each bonus and one-time payment. So if you are using Benefits and Pay Hub, you may notice a small change on this. So let's have a look at the Benefits and Pay Hubs. So I click on my new Benefits and Pay. So if you're currently using it, you will see small change on the visualization, sorry, of the annual and total rewards package, which looks like this. And on the bonus and one-time payment card, you can see that nowadays Workday is showing the paid bonus and one-time payment, and I've removed any scheduled payments. Saving amount and currency for percent allowance plan. So nowadays with Workday, it's easier to maintain selling amounts. If you have any percent-based allowance plan and you want to use selling amounts, you can do it via the task setup allowance plan adjustment task. So if I go to the task setup adjustment, allowance plan adjustment, and if I want to say from now on, my allowance holiday. So you need to set an event name, a reason. But the interesting feature in this is that the new default, you have these two fields, old selling amount, new selling amount, and the selling currency. So now my plan is 8% of annual, but I can decide to limit it to 2,000 US dollar. And for the employee currently assigned to this plan, you can choose for Workday. Do you need to adjust to the new default? So limiting to the 2,000, or do not adjust. It's only for the new assignments. And employees using override. So if the employee are not using the 8% default target, but we assigned an individual target of 10%, you can choose the action here. If you want to adjust by the same amount to the new default, or do not adjust. Then you click on submit and the process goes forward. Compensation grade modeling. So you have a greater insight on your compensation pay range and how you can compare them to your benchmark. So if you're using benchmark in Workday, you can now compare your pay range by job profiles to the benchmark you have or the market pay range that you have in your tenant. Forfeit bonus payment and for terminated workers. So if you have a worker that receives a bonus payment, which is after a worker termination date, you can use the new forfeit checkbox. So if you want to that this future dated payment, which is post termination, be forfeited or not. So that with this feature, the Workday helps to reduce the manual effort and overpaying terminated worker. And then you have payment date based on the one-time payment. So Workday will make it easier for you if you have a how can I say? If you have a one-time payment with an effective date, but then you have the actual payment date, which can be based on the pay group. So for instance, if you schedule a payment date on the 16th of March 2023, but based on the employee's pay group, Workday can display additional text mentioning that based on the specified date, the employee will be actually paid on 31st of March. So if the pay group configuration show that the employee should be paid 31st of March. So even if the effective date of the one-time payment is 16th of March, the Workday will display a text telling that based on the employee specified dates, the payment will be done on 31st of March. And that's based on the employee pay group configuration.
Anthony, sorry to interrupt. Yep. Just being mindful of time, we have 6 minutes left for your mail
6 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, right. All right, sorry. Go quickly on the compensation with statement generation and delivery. So with this new feature, Workday makes it easier for administrator and manager to take on compensation review statements visible to employee. So for example, you have completed your compensation review and you're planning to have the statements visible to employee a month later. With this feature, the manager could request the statement to be visible earlier for the employee if they have had already their discussion together. So it's an improvement of the release compensation review statement task. I won't go through the configuration because it's on the slide, so it's better to go to a demo. Be mindful on this demonstration. There is improvement to be made. So when I made this preparation, one part of it did not work, so I need to contact Workday. But I will let you know how that's supposed to work. So you have your compensation review, and it's time for the statement. So you have finalized the process. You choose your standard merit element, and you can choose a statement release date. So you could choose it in the future, but that does not work currently. So that's the point I was telling. So I will take it in the past. And you can decide if you want to generate statement PDF or not. So I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to submit. And I'm going to proxy at the manager. As a manager, which was part of this compensation review process. I will go to the organization and look at compensation review statement. So you can see here that you have your compensation review. And you can decide, for example, for Anthony Chong, that you want to create the new statement, even if the statement release will be done in the future. You could potentially create the new statement right now for this employee, because I'm going to have in the next 10 minutes meeting with Anthony Chong. So I want to have the statement ready for that. So now the statement is created. I can download it, and then I can access to the task. which is, sorry, up. And I go to set compensation review statement visibility. And once I have discussion with Anthony Chong about this compensation review, I could select the employee, even if the effective date of the release statement will be in the future. You could select Anthony Chong and click OK, and that would bring to Anthony the statement, even if the release statement is in the future. Because I already got my discussion with Anthony Chong, I could give him already his statement without waiting for the future dated. So that's this feature is about. So you have greater flexibility on how and when you want to give statements for employees. So when you use this set compensation restatement visibility type, it doesn't produce actual PDF. It's just give a view for the employee to their statements. So what's changing? Workday makes it easier for the manager to have access to employee statement before they are actually released, and for the employees to have access to the statement before the actual statement release date, based on the individual or based on the group. So you need to enable and grant security to a new domain called worker data compensation review statement visibility. And if you do nothing, Workday will continue working as before, so delivering your statement based on the release statement date. The next feature is eligible earning override for stock. So nowadays, with your stock person based plan, you can use as a basis eligible earnings override. So similarly than bonus. I won't go through configuration because you have it in the slides, so it would just be redundant. But if, just to show you, I stop proxy and I create stock plan as of today, and it's a percent-based plan. So you can use as a basis, eligible earning overrides. So that's the new feature about this. So what's changing with Workday? You can choose to use eligible earning overrides for the compensation basis of your stock plans. It's totally opt-in feature, so you don't need to opt in for this change. And the last feature for advanced compensation is compensation review web service. So you have a new web service, which is for the compensation review validation rules and eligibility waiting periods. And at the same time, Workday is removing the web service for compensation review participation rules, because you nowadays need to use the new web service for participation rule set. So Workday was deprecating participation rules and bring the new participation rule set. So now that's also impacting the web services. On the roadmap for compensation, advanced compensation, here is a list of new feature for Workday. Really waiting forward for the compensation grade profiles that was asked from the customer for a long time. I'm interested to see it and curious about the hub for compensation administrator. Hopefully, can't wait to see the compensation restatement in PDF Designer. It's going to be great. I can't wait for that. All right, so that was just in the limits.